Good afternoon, everyone. I am Xhuljana Mucaj, a young European ambassador from Albania. Today, we finalize our online event on the power of the hashtags, and let me thank all of you who made to join us on those 3 days. I'm very honored to host this interview today with the European Young Leader, Climate Pact Ambassador, and also journalist and book author, Mr. Boštjan Videmšek. Dear Boštjan, welcome and thank you for being here with us today and talking to the young people of the Western Balkans and all over Europe for about what truly matters for the entire world and us as a civilization.
Hi, thank you for having me here. It's a great honor, and hopefully there will be some inspirational words to say and to give. Huh?
Well, I'd like to give a brief breakdown of your impressive career for our viewers. You were a long-standing war reporter for Delo, one of the largest daily newspaper in Slovenia. You reported from all over major wars and conflict areas over the last 25 years. Your articles have been published in over 100 international magazines like BBC, Forbes, New York Times, Le Figaro, Der Spiegel, etc. Over the last 2 decades, you also reported natural disasters, but as if this was not enough, you are the author of many books, and today we are going to talk about your book, Plan B: How Not to Lose Hopes in the Times of Climate Crisis. But before starting with the interview, I'd like to welcome all our audiences who have joined us in live stream in Facebook to write down their comments, to write down their question for you. All right, let's dive right in. And I'd like to ask you about your plan B. What was the plan A that moved you to the B? Does this plan have some suggestion how not to lose hopes in the times of climate crisis? And if yes, I'm very curious to hear about them.
Well, as I was reporting from war zones and conflict zones for, as you mentioned, more than 2 decades, I've seen very rough and direct consequences of climate change. Especially in the last 15 years. And we have to know that majority of conflicts and wars this very moment which are going on are happening in the areas with highest temperatures, and these are mostly the most dry areas in the world, like Sahel, Middle East, Northern Africa. And of course, these are the places where the consequences of climate change, human behavior related climate change is most obvious, most dire, most direct, and most tragic. So, and as a journalist, I was missing this interpretation or narrative in writing and reporting about conflicts and wars. It was, it was always really political and kind of semi-scientific, analyzing who's who, but always forgetting that the environment is changing rapidly. And the first war, real war, when I noticed that this is mostly climate change related war, was, let's call it frankly, genocide in Darfur in Western Sudan in 2003, 2004, when local pastoralists were fighting the cattle herders and fighting for actually survival, to keep the space, to keep the soil, to get to the sources of fresh water. And for example, in 2006, there was this important UN report in which it was published and claimed that Sahara extends towards the south 5 to 7 kilometers per year, and in the same area, in the area of Sahel, around 105,000 springs of fresh water evaporate. So years ago, I wrote that this is like a statement or a proclamation of war. It's a shape of things to come, and what we're seeing now in the region of Sahel and all over the area, it's a wider conflict. I have to say that today is not the best day of my life, because 2 days ago I lost my best friend, twin brother, I would say, in Sahel, in Burkina Faso, on the border with Benin, when he was working on the same story I was working days ago in Kenya about poaching, about the interconnection of governments, poachers, and militias. And he was killed because he was trying to tell the truth. So, and this is what journalism is all about. It's about telling the truth. And the other hand, from plan A, which was to report about human tragedy, put it in the context, and try to pursue the wider public, to raise awareness, to make a world a better place, and being so deeply and undescribably unsuccessful in this, it just, all the conflicts I've covered in the last 20 years are still going on. So from Iraq to Syria, from Afghanistan to Yemen, from Libya to Gaza, you name it, from Congo to Darfur, from Somalia to other places. So I have made this strong decision not to cover direct wars anymore, because it was bloody too much, and but the journalistic instinct and the idea to kick public in the ass, to tell the truth was still there. So I had to find a new front, literally a new front, and the fight against climate change was one of it. And the book, Plan B, is actually dedicated to the pioneers of this fight, to the people who were open enough, motivated enough, courageous and brave enough to step out of the comfort zone. Comfort zone is the mother and father of all evil. To step out of it and to show solidarity, to show spirit, to show power and energy and vitality, to move their communities towards a brighter future, to show the inspiration and power to go beyond borders, beyond the thinkable or imaginable, to prevent the disaster. And the first part of the book is really, as I said, dedicated to these people, and the cases I'm describing are it's not science fiction. But it's existing, but it's here and now, and majority of the cases could be copy pasted to put it in a mother language or applicated to actually all parts of Europe, including, of course, the Western Balkans. And some cases from the Western Balkans already exist, which could be put in the book. So it has been literally a natural transformation or transition from a war reporter to somebody who's doing the climate change related stories, but not just describing the consequences, but offering the answers, the solutions, the already existing solutions. I think if you are experienced enough, if you have seen enough, if you have enough knowledge, if you have studied enough, and it's an ongoing permanent process of self-education, then as somebody who has a right or a big space for publicly spoken word, then you also have the responsibility to act, to react, and to offer solutions. Just describing the tragedies, it's not enough. At the end of the day, it could be just an ego safari if you don't offer direct solutions. And that was my, personal and professional transition from somebody describing the tragedies to somebody who's trying to find solution and help not only individuals, like in my, let's call it, previous professional life, but communities.
Well, really, you give me a lot of information, and as I told you, I will have a lot of time to get your book and to read all the chapters because I have done research and yeah, I've built my question over different issues. But what I have read on your first chapter is that you have opened your book with a quote, and I will quote it. We already have all the facts and solutions. All we have to do is to wake up and change. Is this an awareness message, a call to invite the people in joining your journey to act for the environment?
Do not forget who the author of the quote is. It's
Yeah,
Greta.
it's Greta Zugenberg.
Yeah. I think Greta's case, it's an absolute and waterproof proof that a deep-rooted motivation, activism, the urge to act and react can multiply the goodness, the inspiration, the idea that things are possible, that you can jump over any given obstacle. Because I mean, she went out there alone, and
Yeah.
a couple of months later, that was a global movement. So yes, we need a global movement, and this global movement should be fully inclusive. No, I think in some moments, in some areas, in some aspects, the climate movement has been maybe too exclusive in its shape or generation to be attractive enough or to be precise enough or consistent enough to attract people from the, how to call it, soft tissue of the society, which are not really proactive in their political behavior, in the relation, of course, to the consequences of climate change, or I don't know, especially in the COVID situation where we are suffering from this local, regional, and global, I would call it bipolar disorder, where there are we are fighting the fake news campaign, we are fighting the extreme right, we are fighting the political violence, we're fighting the rise of neo-fascism, and then at the end of the day, there is no space for fight against the climate change or to keep the narrative strong, to keep it as a priority, social, political, economical, and of course environmental and health-wise also, in the sense of public health. So that's why it's extremely important to have as many as possible players from different backgrounds on board. I think that in the beginning it was great that the narrative, the whole story about climate movement was actually the story of a really young generation, as some kind of a pairon in Old Greek, or archaea, like somebody who is behind the movement, who is pushing it forward. But I think now it's time to get every possible person, company, state, community on board. Even people and companies who are really responsible for the destruction of climate and planet, actually. And that this is what always comes as a surprise to me, that my friends from NGOs, from activist organizations, and from ecologists, environmental organizations get pissed off when I say it publicly. Okay, that you have this
Why
multiple.
happens like this? Why is that approach?
Because it's a taboo to say that we need a very strong corporation on board to change the problem. Because if you don't have the strongest players, then you will not move anywhere. You have these players who are stronger than states, who are stronger than unions of states like European Union. You cannot fight such an issue, how to say, with a stick. You need real bombers for that. I mean, you need an armada. You don't go out with two guys saying, yeah, we have to save the climate. No, this is a war. This is a front line, and it's a crucial one in all the human history. And for that, in that kind of conflict, now I'm really talking as an old war reporter, in that kind of war, you have no privilege to choose who's on your side, to choose the members of your alliance and your allies. You need everybody, even the dirty players.
Well, yeah, when I was searching about your book, I saw a review that Plan B was not only an optimistic look, but it was an optimistic look at a pessimistic topic. So I'd like to know, apart the fact that you mentioned that it is a crucial topic, what are the some other reasons that made you write about climate change?
To be quite honest, I was too afraid to report from war zones, so I had to find something more safer. I mean, to put it really frankly, And on the other, on the other hand, it was this old connection to nature. I mean, I hate every second of my life which I spent indoor, and I really feel connected to everything green except the political parties, and I mean, I don't eat meat or anything related to animals since my 15th birthday, and I mean, I had my own, how to say, relations to the questions, as a writer, as a journalist, as a citizen, as somebody with the approach to public space and word, satisfied with the impact, to be honest, of my work as a war journalist, because all the conflicts are still ongoing, more or less, which I was covering in the last 2 decades. So I have kind of transferred the focus to the other, but also interconnected front line of the fight with the climate change. And Plan B, the book, is a direct result of that. Just showing what's possible, and not showing at all what is impossible, because it's so easy to say, that we're doomed, that you cannot do anything, that you just putting out the white flag and say bye, we're doomed. I don't want to use any ugly word here, but it's super important. What I would really like to state now, it's maybe you've heard about Michael's new book. It's called The Climate Wars, where he's describing the way how the multi-corporations, governments are actually doing everything in its power to and it's a tremendous power, of course, to kind of transfer the guilt, the responsibility to every single citizen, to all of us, and to have this idea that it's a personal responsibilities to stop to stop the climate change, or to kind of avert the disaster. It's just horrible, because it's giving the those who are who are the guiltiest, who are actually the mothers and fathers of the ongoing catastrophe, a chance for status quo, a chance of impunity. And no matter what I said before, that this is a war, and that we don't have a privilege to choose our allies, that everybody and everything should be on board to fight and avert the climate change. But still, we have to be clear and sound and truthful and say who the most responsible people, companies, governments are. And what was going on in the narrative, in the discourses of climate change is, okay, everybody should do something, let's go out there and do something with trash. Let's go out there and do something what we eat. Let's change the diet, etc., etc. But this, in my opinion, it's not a solution, because it gives you to an individual a feeling that an overwhelming feeling of incapability, that you cannot do anything, that it's just not enough. And Michael Mann is calling this inactivism, which is far worse than passivity, because it's an active way not to be active. And this is the result of the years of propaganda, how every single one of us is responsible for climate crisis. No, it's not true. And because you don't know what am I doing, and I don't know how do you live. I cannot say that everybody's responsible. This is stupid. It's like saying everybody's responsible for war, everybody's responsible for poverty, for hunger, for... No, it's not true. We have always to know and locate the motherfuckers, to be precise. And then maybe when we are fighting to join the forces, for them it will always be an economic opportunity. From the sheer opportunism, you can even in the sheer opportunism on the, how to say, the dark side of the moon, you can find the solutions, because you cannot fight the war with a stick.
Well, it looks like you are well prepared for new challenge in your life, and I'd like to know how much did your job as a journalist to be a successful pioneer of protecting or being a pioneer of environmental activism. And I have to cite this, that you don't like me to mention the journalism as your job, because you have mentioned in your book that it is more as your lifestyle than a job. And by this, I understand that you loved your job.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
how made the journalism use a successful pioneer in environmental activism?
I don't consider myself as a pioneer of environmental activism, because I'm absolutely too old for this. I mean, it's. I'm just trying to capture or to show or to outline the priorities. Not just trying not to be too blind, and if you're observing what's happening around all of us, then you have to say it loudly as a journalist. And climate crisis and its consequences, it was so underreported for many years, but when it has become part of mainstream media agenda, and also it has penetrated politics, let's see let's see what's happening in Brussels. The green politics, it's actually right now the strongest position ever on one side, and on the other it's dictating the future, and that's great. But if the root causes will be still there and they will not be addressed, and if we will be only looking for technological solutions and not the shift of the social and also political and economical paradigm, this is nothing. Technology as such, it's an empty shell. Every single technological tool can become a weapon, if there is no ethical background, if there is no ethical stand, and one has to be really, really careful when one is talking about or writing about or presenting the technological solutions. Technological solutions are all already there, but without our reflection and aggressive self-reflection, without our permanent struggle and activism, technology will prevail. And prevailing, now my dog is barking, I'm sorry. And the victory of technology is a defeat of humanity, because the next step.
So you don't see any clear or positive relationship among technology and climate change. What's the relationship? What's your perception about this relationship?
I mean, technology and technological solutions are only tools to be used in the change of wider social paradigm and economical paradigm. If you put the tools to wrong people, to wrong companies, to wrong states, to wrong ideologies, to dictatorships, things can change. You know, I mean, God knows why, but nuclear energy comes to mind. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you have a dictatorship plus nuclear energy, and you have a fuck up. You have a very, very democratic country. You have a transparent decision making. You have democracy, and you have nuclear energy, and you have Sweden, and it's fine. So this is what I'm trying to put in a context. If there is no democracy, okay, this is also important. You know, democracy and the awareness, the level of democracy and the level of openness of the societies, and the awareness of climate change and how fight for better environment is important. It's correlated, and even, I mean, I'm coming from Slovenia, which was a democratic country till yesterday, and it had a very bad year in the terms of closure or erosion of human rights. And on the other hand, I mean, in 2020, Slovenia was the second country in European Union in which the level of human rights and open society has shrinked. And in the same time, we were the second country which in the level of unfulfillment, how we did not fulfill our environmental standards and promises. So this really is correlated. And if you don't have a democracy, if you don't fight for inclusive, transparent, tolerant society, then forget any possible successful fight with climate change. And it's not a coincidence that parts of Western Europe and mostly Scandinavia are the real pioneers in the fight of climate crisis. Here, one has to add also the direct consequence, to be a witness or a survivor maybe of the direct consequences of climate change, where there is the edge, where you see what is going on, that it's not just an idea that the climate change and the horrible weather events are something what will happen in future. No, the countries, islands, communities, cities, which have already experienced what is coming and what is already here in the shape of things to come, are already fighting it back because they have no other solution. It really reminds me somehow of the so-called falling man in the from 9/11, the short story from Martin Amis. But on the other hand, we still have to say that there is it will not be a direct quote, but an American psychologist, a great man, Daniel Kahneman, has written that human being is just not wired, evolutionary wired, prepared, ready to react or to behave properly in the way of climate change or to the climate change events, because we are wired for instant reaction, for clear and present danger. If you see a truck coming, you jump. But if somebody tells you, and of course you know all the facts, you believe him, that in 5 to 10 years the oceans will be much higher, the temperature will be much higher, that the glaciers will be more or less non-existent, that the wildlife is on its way to extinction, then you say, oh yeah, that's bad. But mostly people do not react because it's not a direct threat. When it becomes a direct threat, then you react. So this is a big difference between a reflex and reflection. The real activism, here and now, and this is what I would like to put in this inspirational box or a corner, is to be so aggressively self-critical, so aggressively self-reflective, that you don't allow yourself to lose a day, not to study, not to think, not to read, not to go out there and do something for your community. This is the only way, not giving the whole responsibility on the individual, but giving the responsibility to the individual to work and to act in the name of community. Because what is happening right now, it's also during the COVID crisis, and it has been a big step back. It's a destruction of community. It's even worse. It's destruction of society, and we're back to Margaret Thatcher. Does something like society exist? And here her answer would be, I'm afraid, more accurate than ever. And we have to fight for the community, because the solutions are always inside the community.
Oh, yeah. Indeed, I admit that there are a lot of crucial topics to discuss today, but since we are pushed for time, I'd like to ask you my last question. And we would like to have some lesson learned by you. What advice do you have for youngsters from Western Balkans who are passionate to protect the environment?
Read. Do not believe what you hear. Go out and check it with your own eyes. Use your mind as a tool. Use your mind as a weapon. Try to check facts. Do not react instantly to what is said to you or what you see on social media. Believe in the old school journalism. Lots of people out there are still doing a great job. Believe in science. Don't become just a member of a screaming, undefined mess. Be the leader. Take some risks. Be smart. Do not learn how to say no before you say yes. Sometimes it's much more courageous and brave to say no. No is an extremely important word in this world where a lot of opportunism, nepotism, and clientelism is out there to destroy your independency. No is the basic of ethics. And in the moment when you don't feel any shame, in the moment when you don't feel guilty for what is happening around you, then you will know that you're not going in the right direction. You have to feel shame and you have to feel guilty.
Boštjan, as I mentioned, we asked our audience to write down their comments on their question, and we have some question from the audience. It is Julisa that asks, how important are climate issues in Western Balkan society? What can we do to raise awareness on climate change in this region?
They should be much more important and emphasized than they are. This area, this region is dominated by politics and nationalism, and the topics, I don't want to insult anybody, but the topics of the 20th century, so and what is going on, it's that in large parts of Europe, the topics of the 20th century are getting back, the nationalism, the conservatism, the rule of religion, the patriarchat, and everything surrounding it. And in that kind of context, climate change and the fight with the consequences of it, it's even harder, So the focus should be local. The focus should be regional. To locate the main issues in your own environment, in your own village, city, in your own region. To have the list and of major issues, and to surround it with active young people who are leaders in their own communities. I think. Climate change is a global, transnational problem. It does not know the borders, And
Yes.
that's why, in my opinion, the connection of different nations, different states in the Western Balkans could be one of the solutions to fight the climate change.
Well, we have another question from Nebojsa, Serbia. And she asks, what can young people do to be role models for the elderly? Can you give some examples? And I believe that this is the last question we have from the audience.
Hvala, Nebojša. Thank you, Nebojša. It's simple, you know. Look at Greta. You know, I mean, you have to be courageous. You have to be brave. You have to be independent and just not accept what is told or ordered to you. You know, I mean, you have to risk. And all the changes, crucial changes in civilization, history, in the way human race developed, were based in some strong, maybe tectonic events. You know, this is also how evolution works. From evolution to revolution is just one step.
Well, and your last reply brings us to the end of the first part of this event. I want to thank you very much, Boštjan, for being with us today in this amazing hour. Now, I'd like to walk you through on creating a break with 2 inspirational videos, and then I'll invite my colleagues, young European ambassadors, and their friends to discuss about how to keep activism among young people all against the odds. So have a nice view at the inspirational video. Once again, thank you, Boštjan, and
thank you, Xhuljana.
Yeah, thank you too, and to the audience, thank you for your patience, and have a nice look at the videos.